Hey there, how's it going? Fawn here, middle of Jan 2026. New year, new project. Those of you who have followed my channel will know that 2 or 3 years back, more than 2 years ago, I built a tilting electric three-wheeler. I was very, very pleased that I succeeded. It was very difficult, it took a long time, and it was a bit heavy and a bit slow. So ever since I've wanted to try again better. So I've spent somewhere between 6 months and a year building up some materials for this next version of the project. One is an electric scooter and two is a bunch of small bikes. I've had a terrible problem trying to locate correct springs, and I think today I'm about to jump into making some springs. Just before I jump in on the project, I want to talk to you about a couple of things. There are at least 3 or 4 different ways to make a tilting electric three-wheeler. I describe the different systems as being the parallelogram, which can be double or single. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. The carver system, simple but very effective. The skateboard system, and the swing arms or trailing arms. Let me show you through those different systems and then let me show you what materials I've gathered. Here's one I made earlier. I think I did vids of this a few years back. This is a simple parallelogram system. What I call a single parallelogram system. Okay. Here's another model I made earlier, but this one has 2 parallelograms, one on each side. Now it still works with a tilt mechanism, but it's kind of independent suspension. In this case, I'm using pull springs because that's all I had in Mini, but in the big version, I'll use push springs. Let's talk about springs later. So there we go. That's the double parallelogram. Next up, here's another one I made earlier. In a skateboard or a tilting kid's scooter, just this angle, the angle of this axle, once you tilt, it creates a turn. Do you see what's going on there? So that's what I call the skateboard system, or tilting kid's scooter. And finally, we have the carver system. Imagine there's a front wheel there. This is a rough model I've been working on. I'm attempting to make attachments for 2 or 3 or 4 different systems to bolt on and bolt off. So this one is a very, very rough version of the carver system. Here's an extremely rough version of a trailing arm or swinging arm system. On the back of the bikes I'm going to show you in a minute, you'll see there's the back of a diamond shape like this. Watch, so something like that, but I haven't figured out the system. I'm going to look at some other systems. Let me show you some clips. So that's the trailing arm or swing arm system. Okay. So here are some of the bikes and scooters I've gotten in the last 6 months or year. This is a Xiaomi M365 and it has capability to connect with an app on the phone as well. It's 36 volts and it's pretty good. I wanted even more powerful, but that was what I was able to get for a reasonable price. So happy enough with that. Here are 2 kids' bikes. Took quite a long time to find, but they'll do the job, hopefully. And yeah, there are at least 4 different systems for making a tilting system. I haven't got the time, money, or energy to buy 4 different electric scooters. But what I might have the energy to do is to try building bolt-on, bolt-off modular scooters. So when I did the last project, it was a single parallelogram like this. And you see these rubber bands? I had something like that made of full-scale bungee cord, and that was the only spring that I used. I see other people making three-wheelers on YouTube and they've used proper springs. I have had an extremely difficult time locating springs and I'm still not happy. Let me show you the situation so far. This is basically the only bike spring that I was able to locate. You know, the more fancy bikes, mountain bikes, have that built into the chassis in part of the diamond. That says, in small writing, £750 per inch. The spring is unbelievably strong. But I can't find anything else, so that's that, too strong. This is from a motorbike, and I believe it's something to do with the gear change, the clutch gear change. This, I think, fits inside the front shock absorber and spring unit of a motorbike. So my plan is, starting today, I'm going to have to build some spring units. I'm going to cut them in half. So my friends, here we have a strong, very strong spring shock absorber unit, which is not able to pull apart. Well, with a bit of strength it will, but it won't come apart in the normal things. And this is going to bolt on to a piece of welding, something similar to that. That can go on like that. Okay, today is the day when it's time for the rubber to hit the road. I'm going to start the metal work on the latest iteration of the tilting three-wheeler. Let me show you the... There it is, Xiaomi M365. It's not steel, it's aluminium bodied, so I'm going to just drill little holes on the edge to be able to bolt in under here. Either I'm going to do 4 or 6 little holes to bolt in. So there we have it. 3 pieces of metal, 2 centimetre square, with holes drilled and receiving holes. Here is the story so far. Everything's just loosely held in place. There we go, a little bit of minimum welding before putting it up onto the table. Just tack welding it into place for now. That's me done for today. This is all welded together. It's not my finest work. I need to practice more, I need to get better. But it's welded, it's holding, it's cleaned up. I'm done for today, but happy with that. I've made a start and the first bit of welding for the project is done. Happy days. So today is the day I'm going to start disassembling the 2 small bikes for their wheels and parts of their frames. Let me show you what I've done already. You get your hex or Allen key. And you undo the top. Actually, that's the wrong size, but you undo this. And then later you undo that. Here's one I did earlier, yesterday. So I'm about to repeat the process and then I'm going to cut there, and the same on that bike. Now to remove the cranks, the pedal cranks, you need specialist tools. Number 1, you need a sort of a socket thing that's going to go in there, which I don't have, and then you need a crank removal tool. So I'm just going to give this into the local bike shop to get these parts removed. Well, for now, I've done all I can with nuts and bolts, etc. So aside from this bike seat, I've taken pretty much everything off, including the centre of the crank axle. Both bikes are pretty much completely cut into little pieces now. So that's what they call cleaning up the weld, where you use a flat disc. It's a bit like sandpaper but for metal, and you clean up the weld afterwards like that. That weld there actually is the best of the day. So look, that's it. So here's the story so far. We now have 4 uprights welded on as of today. So today, balancing here, I have 1, 2, 3 cross pieces. They're not welded yet. They're just balancing. I cut them to the best of my ability, and I'm just about to weld them, so fingers crossed. So at the end of today's bit of welding, here's the story so far. So right now I'm making little pieces like this, either 3 centimeters long by 2 centimeters wide, or about 4 mil thick, and that's an 8 mil hole that I've drilled through. Here's a test piece from a few weeks ago. They're going to go something like that to attach a spring, something like that. And voila, something like that. Like this is where the pedals went. That's where the back wheel axle was, and this is where the pedal was. Here, I wanted to be able to swing, pivot on an axle like that. So this is what I had to do. Piece, instead of that, because I want my rod to go all the way through, metal tubing, plastic tubing, 12 mil washers drilled out with this stepped bit, drilled out to be 16 mil, and that's what's going to sit inside this axle. So the story so far today is I took 2 of the bits of metal that I'd cut and prepared that are like that and welded them as best as I could on there. You may ask yourself why. I'm going to do my magic finger click and then show you why. Ready, steady. Voila. So imagine, if you will, the front of the vehicle is there, and in 2 out of the 4 systems there are going to be back wheels attached here to the end of this. So these 2 uprights here are to keep that on the straight and narrow, so to speak. So I'm very pleased to say these odd looking curved bits of metal are the next step in making a proper tilting suspension. And I'm going to bend that. I'm only going to bend it as far as here, just a tiny bit beyond. Like so. And then, ready, set, go. And voila. So in the past few days I've shaped and cut these pieces for the tilting suspension. They're going to go something a little bit like this. There'll be one coming out here, which will be shorter, and another one here. And then the longer pieces are going to attach up top. Okay, here goes during the first of the short suspension pieces. Ta-da! Voila! All drilled, all drilled. Not all perfect, but, you know, good enough. The rough idea is going to go something like that. There you go. This represents your axle for your bike wheel here. Okay, that's going to go on like that. But as I say, it's going to be bigger and stronger. And then the tilting mechanism now, unfortunately for me, I need to weld extra pieces there and incorporate some shock absorbing springs. Okay, today here I am at a fairly critical point. I'm going to go and weld this stuff up shortly. This bolt is just in temporarily until I've welded it up. This is going to fit across the top like that. So here we are with the rear assembly of the tilting trike up on the workbench. I'm not sure of its exact weight, but it's still very easy to lift up. I'm really pleased with how light it is. Next vid I'll get you a proper weight. So the plan for today is I've cut these bits of steel. I think they're 4mm thick. They're going to go welded on something like that. And a supplementary small piece here, something like that. Here we are, another day's welding. At the moment I'm loving the look of this. It looks a bit like something out of Terminator 2. Also, it has a nice feature where you put it on the ground. Hey voila, the joys of video editing. Joys of video editing, there you go. I believe it's 90% finished. Look, the wheels are going to go there. One axle there, one axle there. Going to be a hole drilled there for brakes to go in. So I appear to have two problems with this version of the tilting trike. One is that I just get the feeling the wheelbase is a bit small. It would work, I might leave it, but I also might put some extenders on here so that this whole lot can go a little bit further back. So that's one problem. The second problem, I'm going to bring the camera over and try to show you. This basically, look, the problem is this. If this is here pressed down, it kind of does stay in position. But with just a little bit of pressure, it can go inside there. So I believe the answer to that is to take this distance here and make it longer. So I'm just literally going to leave that as it is and drill a new hole higher up here to bring this arm up here. And then of course I will probably have to cut this off and drill a fresh hole there and a fresh hole there because that will be higher up, so it needs to be shorter. These pieces here have been shortened about 2 centimetres and then a fresh hole drilled there. That was the existing original hole. Fresh hole has been drilled there. So let me just see if I can demonstrate this now. That's going to go something like that, and that's going to go something like that. So I've fixed one problem and realised another problem. With this longer distance here, that problem no longer exists of the wheels suddenly flipping in. The springs I've been using, they are motorbike front shock parts from inside, however I've cut them smaller, and there's one or two. But these little springs go inside here. Now they always seemed unbelievably strong to me, but with this amount of leverage, if I go here and press like this, it now seems extremely easy. It works very nicely as a spring. That's hardly an effort at all. So, either a stronger or a longer spring. Here I am back out at the welding station. What I'm about to construct is something pretty much like this, which is going to be, let's call it a fork. So, good news, here we are with the finished bracket. So I just wanted to show you here. Here is the kind of fork part of the suspension before installation. And here it is after installation. So the spring is going to be inside, it's inside there. Here's the one outside to compare to. And it goes down, the end of the fork goes down to there. So here we have 3 sections of the 3-wheel tilting electric scooter. There's the scooter, which just needs the rear wheel taken off. I've already drilled 6 mounting holes there. This isn't exactly attached yet. I can still lift this seat off. The seat sits on those 4 springs there, and there is the completed. So here's an unusual view. Here's the 3-wheeler from underneath. And I've just been using this spanner to tighten up all the nuts and bolts here. So temporarily, there she is in all her glory. I need to work on the routing of the brakes and it's not quite working right, but in essence, there she is. Okay, here we are with the first ever go on the new version of the tilting trike 2026. Woohoo! Yay!
Yay!
Yeehaw! Woohoo!
Bravo, Fon!
Woohoo! Yay!
Yay! Well done.
So there you have it, a partial success. Because the springs aren't quite strong enough, when I sit on it, it just goes down to the end of the spring travel. If that wasn't the case, then the wheels are able to tilt. So I'm going to go back to the drawing board and try some of the other techniques that I want to try. There are at least 3 other techniques that I'm going to build. So this is the end of part 1. That's about 6 months of work already done. I just wanted to share what I've done so far. And I hope to be back in another few months' time, whenever, let's see, with other versions of this which will hopefully work properly. Live and learn. Thanks for watching. Till the next time. God bless. Bye.